All right, so today I wanted to talk about the next rule slash philosophy to live by. And this is one that I kind of lay claim to, in that you hear a lot of people talk about this, but they don't really get into the weeds of it. And it's number 8. And there's other ways of putting it, but I put it in the way of expect quote unquote normal people to think you're weird. And this is one that you really need to flesh out to really understand what I'm getting at. And what I'm getting at is, if you decide to, break the norms or, break free in any way, normal people are going to think you're weird, right? Everyday people. Especially if you come from, a family where everybody's out of shape and you decide to get in shape, you're really going to notice it, right? If you come from a family where everybody's broke and you're really good with your finances, you're really going to notice it, right? If all your friends are alcoholics and you decide to stop drinking, you're really going to notice it, right? And a lot of people, they don't know what you mean. You don't really know exactly what I mean until you've done it, right? You really don't. And honestly, you don't even really need to notice it if your family or your friends are super out of shape. You'll notice it regardless, right? You really will. And most of the time, I think, well, it depends on the situation, but in my personal experience, most of the time it is lighthearted. But again, when people bug, if you're in really good shape and people bug you about it, what they're really saying is, I'm jealous of how you look, right? That's what they're really saying. Um, Now, again, they'll almost never put it that way, right? But that's what they really mean, right? Again, if you save well and have a lot of money, again, people will be snarky about it, right? Or maybe they'll joke in good faith, right? Or, yeah, I mean, if they're broke, they'll be asking you for money, right? It doesn't matter what you do, right? It doesn't matter what you do. Like, again, I mean, personally, I virtually never drink. Like, maybe once a year will I drink. And when I tell people that, I mean, I'm never super open, like I'm never going around announcing it. But when you tell the average person that, sometimes, not all the time, but every now and then, you get like a weird look. But it's like, why is that such a bad thing, right? I mean, when I tell people that I follow a fairly strict diet, again, people kind of double take and like, what do you mean, right? So this is something that really high top performers, they're the ones that are going to notice it the worst or the most. And I mean, there's a handful of solutions to it. The first one is just spend less time around the people that do it. But again, like there's really no way around this at the end of the day. If you're going to become, and you don't even need to be hyper successful, like the best shape you'll ever see, like, or, super rich, like even if you're above average, it's still probably something that's going to happen, right? And again, the problem with it is people that settle, right? Settle for being out of shape, being broke, you name it. It makes them insecure when other people break the cycle, especially family and to a lesser degree friends. Because with family, well, if it's siblings, then I mean you have virtually the exact same genetics. You grew up in the same environment, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, if it's parents, it can expose their own insecurities, right? So that brings its own, you know, problems. If it's friends, then it's like, still people feel like, okay, it's something that I could be doing, but I'm not doing, right? And rather acknowledge that I choose not to do it, I'm going to ascribe something else to, be the excuse as to why I'm not in that position, right? Sometimes there's other things going on that are out of your control. That is possible, but um, this is one of the hardest things, in my opinion, that people need to figure out, for lack of a better way of putting it, if you're going to become very successful at anything, right? This is very, very hard, right? And anyone who has done it you most likely know what I mean, or maybe you've just gotten super good at dealing with it and you don't even notice it. One of the two. But you're never going to become uber successful in any endeavor without noticing something like this, right? I mean, you look at the top performers at anything, right? At anything. Do they look normal? Do they look sane to the average person? Like, of course not. I mean, if you look at the best bodybuilders, right? They are, everything they eat in a day is regimented. They're training, everything's regimented, right? Does that look normal to the average person? No, right? I mean, if you look at the top CEOs, right? I mean, they're probably working 60, 70, 80-hour weeks, like putting their blood, sweat, and tears into it. I mean, at least starting out, right? Is that normal for the average person? Of course not, right? So that's something. And again, I'm not saying you need to be like that dedicated, but even if you come anywhere close to that, you're gonna learn this stuff, right? So once you accept that that's the way things are going to be, I think that really sets you free, right? Just accept it. That's just the way things are going to be. And again, if people are too negative, I would probably reconsider things, right? Try and avoid the situation entirely, or even spending any time around them, right? But again, you need to expect it, right? And once you expect it, right, then it honestly just rolls off your shoulder, right? And eventually you probably do get used to it. You probably do get used to it. But another good way of going about it is just spend more time around high performers, the people you really want to spend time around, right? Rather than the lower performers or even average people, right? Because I'm not necessarily judging, right? I'm not necessarily judging as well. I'm just pointing out reality, right? And a lot of times it's not people consciously doing this kind of stuff. A lot of times it is unconscious, right? Because again, subconsciously, if you're in very good shape and your best friend isn't, well, yeah, that's going to make you uncomfortable, right? If your sibling is very well off financially and you're not, it's probably natural to feel uncomfortable about that sometimes, right? So that's something that I think is hard for people a lot, but again, you need to learn to deal with it. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. If you liked the video, hit that like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more.